it could be counterproductive for using land producing food.
No more gas cars.
Long term, it's going to save them money.
Climate changes and environment changes are so far away.
Technology needs to get better. All we need to do is get back to the 1915.
Oh, you sound like my bloody granddad.
When we open our phone, we have things that tell us the air quality. That should be a warning.
Do you think climate change is real?
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another episode of TED Talks. Today we're going to talk about sustainability. But before we start, I want you to subscribe to our channel, put the like button if you like this video, leave a comment about sustainability. And now we're going to start.
Today we have Mr. Ed Crowther. So we have an episode of Ed and Ed Talks after I get cut out of the episode. Ed used to be in this very office that we're recording the podcast in. He runs Square Metre, a company all about sustainability. Ed, welcome to the podcast.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And it's nice to be back in this room. A few less plants in here than there were before, but a lot more very cool equipment. So, it's cool.
Making notes of that. There was a lot of plants in here. It used to smell really nice when you came in. Now it smells like sweat.
It won't be if you leave.
So, Ed.
Hi.
Tell us about you.
About me, okay. I'm 30.
Devilishly handsome.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, does the devil look handsome? I don't know.
We'll see what he does in the edit.
Okay, we'll see. So yeah, I don't know.
You were born, now you're here. What happened?
Yeah, my name's Ed. I was born in 1992. Kind of, I don't know. Does that put you on the cusp of millennial to Gen Z? Somewhere around there.
You're definitely millennial at that.
Ah, damn.
Definitely.
Oh,
I think I'm 96 and I'm on the border.
It was a weight.
The weight that pushed me over.
96
stone.
kilo. I don't know what is stone.
I'm about 96 kilo, I think, actually. Yeah, I'm heavy, bro.
I can tell.
If you put me in the ocean or the Brayford, I would sink.
I mean, I'm loving Edgar's use of the metric system there because, all about the square meters. Like square foot kind of just blows my mind. What a ridiculous system. Just, meters, they work, don't they?
My square footers.
Kilograms, yeah, brilliant. All the other stuff is like, who thought of that?
It's hard for me to use navigation because when the turn is in 300 yards, I have no idea how far it is. And I just wait until she say, turn now.
Well, you can change that.
Yeah, but
So why don't you change it?
I know. But I try to learn and try to understand. But after
no one uses yards.
The navigation use.
Nah. It does
Hey,
do that,
road
doesn't
signs
it?
do.
It goes very much from the, turn off in 60 miles to turn in 500 meters. Or have I just made all that up?
I know, the road signs tend to be yards here.
Interesting. I should
know.
really pay more attention to road signs. Yeah. So you were born, now you're here. What happened in between? So obviously you're running Square Metre now.
Yep.
How did you get into doing that? So what was your kind of post-education career journey? How did you get there?
Brilliant. I guess it actually started towards the end of my education when I was in sixth form in a wonderful little town called Southwell, not too far from here, in Nottinghamshire, where I spent a bit of time working on an organic farm with a very cool farmer guy, and he taught me a lot about things about soil and planting. I think from my mind before, I'd just see it as soil is soil, and you plant things in it, and it grows. And then it's kind of, suddenly this whole new world opened up where it's actually there's an infinite amount of complexity in it. In fact, we're discovering that how biodiverse soil is now in itself. And it's, like mind-bogglingly crazy. There's likely going to be new medicines and things discovered from our in-depth looks at soil over the next few years. And yeah, I know all of this kind of stuff, which is super interesting. But yeah, there's that working on that organic farm kind of was the trigger for kind of understanding that nature is a lot more complex, and our effects on it can be equally as complex. And then I disappeared for a while and did a lot of youth work and DJing and all of that kind of stuff. So I was DJing in Lincoln and Nottingham. I went down and DJed in London for a few years, which was really good fun. Then I got married, came back, and then it was when COVID happened, really. Then I started working for a in-ear headphone company, or specifically one that helped people protect their hearing from shooting, because obviously it's very loud. So
yeah, not if the bullet goes in your ear though. Your hearing's screwed.
I mean, yeah,
and you'd be dead.
And you'd be dead.
And you'd be dead.
I'd recommend anyone who does any kind of loud career, just get some custom headphones, like not affiliated with anyone now or anything, but just it's like for 100 quid, sometimes even like 50, 60 quid. You can get something that will just really protect your hearing for a very long time. Totally worth doing. So anyway, was doing this for some, this group that they kind of made them for motorbikers and shooters. And that meant at one point I was up in Scotland. So partly what I'd do is kind of inject this weird foam into people's ears to kind of create the custom molds. All
Sounds
very
illegal.
It's all very weird stuff.
It's
and then
like the 2022 Wet Willy.
and then they'd use that to go and make the actual actual hearing stuff. And at this time I was up in some like massive estate in Scotland. I can't even remember the name of it, but it was huge and very lovely. And it was like hanging out with this, I assume he's some kind of lord. He seemed like it. And he'd just been planting loads of forest, and he'd been planting loads of meadow, and he'd been renaturalizing his the streams and stuff that ran through his land. And it was really cool. And I was a little bit jealous, because I was like, it's so cool to be in the space where you can do that. Like you can decide on your land that you're going to make an incredible impact on biodiversity in that area, and on carbon, and on the local economy as well, which was also part of his plans. So I looked at that and I was like, I want to do that. I spoke to a few people and they were like, I'd love to be in a position to do that. There wasn't really a way of getting involved. So that's basically where my Square Metre came about, is so lots of people could go and plant a Square Metre and kind of come together in this like ownership and custodianship of like a much bigger piece of land that maybe no one could afford to have on their own. But for small businesses or medium-sized businesses, or even bigger businesses, they could attribute part of their, almost carbon guilt, as it were, that they could offset a bit of that and help encourage biodiversity as well. So that was very long form.
So obviously you had a lot of work experience. You were on the farm, then you were doing that and shadowing. Do you think that the fact you were stuck inside during COVID had an impact on you wanting to get outside again with the job as well? Or do you think it had no bearing?
Not really. I think, I don't really think it's a COVID thing, but it's one of those where even if you don't always want to go outside, it's like you almost, like it's universal. It's like you almost always feel better like coming back outside, even if it's been raining or snowing. I'm saying this though, it's universal.
Well, we don't like going outside.
that's true for me, but
I can't fit outside.
Outside can fit you.
I know there's something really cool about nature. In fact, I was on a walk the other day. Turns out there's a walk along the river on like the other side of Lincoln. I think you can walk to Boston following the river.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want to.
No, you wouldn't want to.
You wouldn't want to.
Just because it's a long journey, obviously Boston's is perfectly fine and nice.
No, I didn't mean that.
What? So yeah, down the river, it's just like amazing the amount of stuff that you see just on a on a little walk. So like different birds, or like I don't know, saw a kingfisher the other day. It's pretty cool. But yeah, it's just like there's so much cool stuff going on in nature, and what's kind of amazing about it is I think we're so used to humans being so in control of everything, and I don't know, our lives can be quite static, whereas suddenly when you're out in nature you realize that so much goes on just kind of sometimes without us even noticing. Like if you really zoom in and just look at a small patch for a little while. In fact, that is actually one of the ways of recording biodiversity, is to just sit in a particular spot for a certain length of time and just study that spot and see what you can see in that time. And that's is one of the ways that you record it. But it's amazing how much is out there. And I don't know, it's quite easy to miss it. I'm always a little bit infused by being outside, and weirdly have extremely fond memories of picking onions and planting cabbages and all of that kind of stuff.
Edgar nearly had those memories.
No, but I grow plant of wheat once. It was fascinating.
Weed.
3 months, yeah. Yeah, I'm agree with you that it's a lot of going on in nature, but I think I have really different experience from the childhood,
Okay.
because I spent a lot with grandmas and father's parents, mother's parents on their allotment in a way, and they used to like go in nature, and it always was forced for me, because they
Okay.
would say that you have to go with us and take me there. And so I spent a lot outside on the nature, in walk somewhere, picking up potato every year, and that was not nice experience. And as soon as I grow up, when I don't have to do what they say, I like, okay, I'm done.
Fair enough.
So,
I mean, if I don't know, if you get any of that childhood reminiscing back and you fancy a walk, just let me know. Always happy for a walk.
It's just so random. I don't know why it's so funny, but it's just so negative.
no, it's not negative. I'm aware that I'm agree that a lot of stuff happening, because I saw it from different bugs and worms and how things growing, and especially when you plant something and you see how it growing, how the tree growing every year or over summer, or some bush, and then you eat some berries from this bush or some apples from your tree, and it's interesting.
I mean, it kind of has to be, right? Like
Yeah.
it's fundamental to our existence, is like
Yeah.
the fact that food grows. But yeah, I know, it's cool.
Ed,
Hi.
wildflowers.
So, yeah. No, what wildflowers?
Wildflowers.
I'm curious about the Square Metre, how it works, because I understand how, from what you say, what is it, but how it actually work. How, for example, me as an entrepreneur
Yeah.
or business owner, how what the process is.
So yeah, basically how it works is you come to us, I don't know, give us some money and we'll go away and plant some wildflowers for you. This is pretty much the crux of it, but we can do that in lots of different ways. And but what you kind of get in return is we do go and plant some wildflowers in your name for 30 years. So it can be just we go down to like one wildflower, or we could do a few acres for you. Is totally dependent on what you and your business want to do.
And what land do you use?
So use only grade 3 or lower land. So the idea is we don't take away good farmland, and there's quite a lot that goes into finding land.
Difference, can you?
We have no idea
Yeah,
what
level,
grade 3
level.
is.
Okay.
What the hell are you on about?
So in talking about kind of what the grade of the land is, that can come down to a few different tests. So that can be, you can do it by things like a thing called like a VEST test, where you might test what the actual soil feels like. The test itself, you kind of pick up some chunks of soil and break it in your hand, and it depends on how big those chunks of soil are a factor in it. And you can run tests just to make sure that there's no pollutant is in it, or what the nitrate levels are, or whether it's obviously you can kind of tell by looking at it, or whether it's more like clayey or whether it's more sandy or more chalky like we have in some places in Lincolnshire. So yeah, it's there's a lot of different factors that go into it, but it gets put into this grading system where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've seen some 5, which tend to be
really rare.
I mean, kind of.
Grade
So
5. So.
the only ones that I've
What's the
seen that
best?
are 5 before are like dumping sites where loads of stuff's just been like landfill sites that's just been kind of like grassed over. Like that's 5. Like
Oh.
it's
So 5's the worst.
yeah, it's
Oh.
not particularly great. 4 is just like very, very low fertility. You're going to struggle to grow anything of particular value there, or you're going to struggle to make your money back on it at least. 3 is similar, but a step in the right direction. So it's you could be making some money off it as a farmer, but it's going to be a bit harder. And then kind of like your 2 and your 1s are like that's some good solid land there to be
There's
growing
some
in.
good juice down there.
Is that like in selling in bags? Is it
So-
like when you buy dirt in a bag?
Oh no, this is like for fields and yes, there's stuff that's actually there. So
Oh, I mean,
I'm sure there's a different grading for the soil
Yeah.
you get in the bags, but
It's supposed to be a really good one. Oh, I did.
yeah.
You've seen some good soil in B&Q.
But just as long as it's peat free, you're kind of all good. There's quite a lot going into choosing the right piece of land. So not only does it have to be low grade, that works for 2 reasons. One of which it could be counterproductive, say for carbon and biodiversity, to be using land that could be producing food most efficiently. So if you're taking away grade 1 land, then that just means like another ship bringing a load of, I don't know, cabbages or potatoes or something in from another country. And that's going to be a lot more carbon than you'd be saving by, just not planting in that land. So it's a lot better to, kind of just focus on low grade and with wildflowers as well. These are flowers which traditionally are, or like through all of history really, have kind of been grown in quite a lot of slightly more obscure places. They've kind of found their home in places where other things aren't. So where like there's a lot of grass, they don't do extremely well. Where there's lots of trees, a lot of them don't do extremely well. So they've kind of found themselves in some slightly more obscure places. And that's why, it's using a lower fertile ground as they're very used to that. Whereas if you put it in a high fertile ground, they'll still grow, but then they'll be competing against like nettles and thistles and things that grow really fast, way faster than they do. And that just means they'll probably get outcompeted, and then you'll just end up with like a nettle patch, really. So so choose that, and then it gets wonderfully more complicated when you start to look at some of the maps that are around. So there's a great charity called Bug Life who
I've seen that.
Yeah,
Bug's Life.
I mean, great film too. But yeah,
Slick.
yeah, I mean, they do maps of these kind of like biodiversity highways, or these bug highways, or these bee highways and stuff, where you can see where there's a lot of movement of certain bugs and things. So if you're within 3 miles of one of those, that's kind of good, because that's how far, like say, bees might fly, kind of their maximum range. So then you kind of want to be close and near other nature reserves and other meadows and things, partly because if you have almost like an arc, as it were, if you have one little space where there's a lot going on and you've managed to get a load of biodiversity in your little patch, you start risk inbreeding pretty quickly. So you kind of want to make sure that you can have kind of, I don't know, different insects and stuff coming in to do the thing.
Yeah, I didn't know about the maps with bug roads.
Oh yeah, so there's that, and there's other maps. There's different.
Is it public information somewhere?
Yeah, you can just Google it, and
You're not listening. Bug Life. They do maps. You've done it again.
I mean, you get people like in Lincoln. We were very lucky. We've got the Greater Lincolnshire Nature Partnership. They produce some cool maps too, of saying where the highest need is for like biodiversity focused projects and that kind of stuff. So you're basically looking at somewhere that fits into these maps ideally, and then you're looking for that low grade land, and then you're looking at what's the best thing to do on there. So there's a good case for wildflower meadows on a lot of space, because they're the kind of classic statistic on them is that there's only about, compared to 100 years ago, there's only about 3% of wildflower meadow left. That's for a few reasons. One of them is we have a lot less horses now. Just bringing it back to the horses, we don't need as much hay. Like the meadows were used to make hay, but then when we've kind of got rid of them and replaced them with other crops, found that those other crops aren't maybe supporting biodiversity in the way that the meadows were. But then some of them were very ancient meadows, and full of kind of amazing fungi and loads of cool different microbes and things in the soil, and very unique, interesting habitats, which unfortunately have just kind of been bulldozed over or plowed up, and then just kind of planted with wheat, sprayed with fertilizer, sprayed with insecticide, and now we're just left with a very generic fields and kind of lost some of this incredible lush habitat. I guess the aim of my Square Metre is to try and restore some of that habitat.
Was there a reason, and I'm sure the answer is biodiversity, but why you didn't do tree planting instead? Because there's so much around, carbon credits, planting trees, and everyone knows trees are good for sapping up carbon. So
yeah, I mean, trees are great, but yeah,
they're all right.
I don't know. There's
all right, aren't they? Depends on the tree.
That's a very good point.
Climbing or falling?
I'm not built for climbing trees.
But yeah, that's a super good point. It depends on the tree, and it depends on where it's planting. It depends on who's planting it, how well they've planted it, and how well it's going to be maintained. So there's been a few controversies where there was a council that spent like £1 million on buying up a chunk of land, and they got people who worked at the council to come down and dig it up. I say it's Hackney, but I'm not sure, so don't sue me if it is Hackney Council.
Sue him.
And then they planted a load of trees really badly, and they just all died.
And the people or the trees?
The trees grew up and took them down. They run Hackney now. But no, yeah, genuinely, they just did it so wrong, and it can be done so wrong. And it's kind of nuts that a lot of organizations have just kind of been like, oh, maybe we'll just plant our own forest, and haven't looked for the guidance that they need. So we've been very lucky with some of the help that we've got from the University of Lincoln, working with some of their, works with an incredible ecology lecturer called Laney, who's helped us come up with our planting practices and almost how we should approach the whole thing. So rather than just carbon, it's kind of like carbon and biodiversity, but then also how that fits in locally as well. It's got to how we engage with the local people that are around us. Say if we have a patch that's right next to a farmer who's growing a particular type of crop, there's ways that we could plant that would actually help that farmer and potentially even help them use less pesticides. And so it's that kind of engagement that's really good to do, and trying to be as open as possible and working with as many people as possible. If you're doing something like this involving landscape, it's almost biodiversity by nature. When doing it is like you should be open to the kind of collaboration that the bugs have.
We have in Ukraine from Soviet Union. So Soviet Union was growing up a lot of trees. I don't know the English name of this tree, but the tree, when it grow up, it take out a lot of liquids from the ground. So a lot of place would have underground swamps, something.
Okay, yeah.
The trees take out the liquids from it.
Oh,
and
totally.
It's not swamp anymore, so they can build. But then Soviet Union collapsed. and Soviet Union was planned to keep these trees for a while, and they do this purpose and then get rid of them and plant something different. But then it's collapsed. Now new country, and Ukraine is protecting every tree it have,
Okay.
and they not maintain it, so they fallen. Trees are most of them dying, and they like destroying some houses, cars, and you can't, even if it's on your land, you can cut it down because it's protected, because
Okay.
it's kind of government property and nature. But the purpose, what they was growth, it's done long time ago.
Totally. And I think a lot of it is natural habitats that have existed for a really long time. So we struggle with that in the UK now, is the fact that, those little patches of trees that you see as you're driving somewhere, a lot of those are getting quite old, and a lot of them are getting quite dead, partly just because we've got more deer now than we've ever had in the country. So they come along, they go into those areas because they're safe, they're fairly dry, there's quite a lot of food there. They just eat all of the new trees. And so no trees grow there. And you end up with like a patch of woodland that's probably emitting more carbon than it's taking in, and that isn't really supporting any kind of life either. So yeah, so the kind of Ukraine example is like a classic, like humans have kind of come in and done a load of planting, being like, oh yeah, we're great, and then kind of forgot about all of the tiny complexities that it takes to make a forest work. So forests work because, I don't know if you've seen the fact that they communicate through like mushrooms in the ground.
Yeah.
It's like all that bonkers stuff, and you don't get that just by planting it. You get that after a long, long time. Like, I mean, you might hope in a few lifetimes worth of human lifetimes, you might hope that might appear, but there's a chance that it could take thousands of years. So it's like, but there's not a reason for us to not start doing that kind of stuff now, or to extend what's already there, or to research to see if we can speed up the process.
Do you in touch with council or government?
Yeah, so I should be doing some planning for the council and that kind of stuff soon, and like Lincoln City, you've got like a little patch should be doing and stuff, but
Don't. What, the football club? Lincoln City? What do you mean?
Oh, no,
Lincoln City
the
Council.
Lincoln City
I
Council.
was going to say, don't plant them on the football pitch. They'll get ruined.
Fair.
That's my advice anyway.
But yeah, and then a little bit of
I guess you're working with people who not really understand, even if they care, how it works.
yeah, a lot of people understand, and since doing it, I've noticed just how many people like they know a lot about flowers and they know a lot about planting, and it's a big thing for a reason. There's a few garden centers in every town, or like, yeah, usually in some villages and stuff all around the place for a reason. It's because like planting stuff and growing things is a big thing. So there's a lot of people who are very interested in it, but it's yeah. So speaking to the councils is always a bit hard because you get immediate interest. It's like, yeah, would love to plant some wildflowers. Would love to do all of this kind of stuff, and then it kind of goes up a little bit, and then it's like, oh, but it's not really a priority. And no, sometimes that's right. Sometimes helping people eat and have a roof over their head, and to stop violent crime, and to make sure that, yeah, kids are being educated well, and that they're being fed while they're being educated, all of that kind of stuff, that bins are being collected, that recycling is actually happening. All of that is super important. But I think we're doing all of those things, and we're doing like all of the day-to-day things, and we're trying to keep on top of them. And we've been doing that for a long time, and kind of like slowly in the background, there's kind of just been these tsunamis and earthquakes of kind of biodiversity crisis and climate crisis coming in. And even in the last couple of months, the people starting to go, oh, actually, yeah, we need to do some stuff now. So now I'm starting to get calls from people. And I mean, it's quite an interesting dynamic that it's kind of like, now it's seen and visible. Now there's a lot of fires going on in Italy and France and that kind of stuff, people are kind of going, oh, actually, maybe we should start doing some of that stuff a bit sooner than we were kind of planning on, which is good, but it's also kind of like, it should have really been like maybe our parents kind of going, oh yeah, should we start planting loads of forest and loads of meadow, and should we start maybe reducing our impact a lot? But I mean, if we just listened to Al Gore, we would have been okay.
Who?
So I think it's happening
Is that
because
a real person?
he was in Simpsons.
Al Gore.
It's like
And
also
in
real
Futurama.
presidential candidate.
Yeah, he almost win. If he would win, probably a lot of things will be different.
Yeah, I mean, inconvenient truth.
What do you mean?
Iraq could probably be in a better place.
Al Gore. I've heard of algae.
Yeah, I mean, there's Simpsons episodes, South Park episodes about him.
He was in Futurama.
Yeah.
No idea. Genuinely, it scares me, things like that. You know,
He was really close to win, how I remember. Yeah, like that really, really tie with the another one.
But still.
Do you think it's happening because the people think that climate changes and environment changes are so far away that no matter what we do, we would still not see it? Probably not as much, but it's more about the next generations, kids, their kids.
Yes, I mean, it's no reason not to try. And I think one of the massive misconceptions about the whole thing is that it's going to cost a lot and it's going to sacrifice a lot to be able to do it. Whereas it's actually quite different. It's actually an opportunity for a lot of new industry. It's in a very like green and eco industry. It's the opportunity for a lot of jobs, and also there's potential like cost savings in it. So some farmers, I've forgotten what it is now. There's a particular bug that eats a lot of like oilseed rape and that kind of stuff. Simply planting wildflowers can just provide them with the right kind of insects that's going to eat the bugs and kind of stop them in their tracks. So it's that whole thing of it's not necessarily a cost.
Mm-hmm.
And there can be benefits that are both wholesome to us as humanity, but also to the actual economy. So I think a few people are starting to realize that as well. So I think that's one of the areas where you're starting to see the markets really turning towards that, like quite quickly, that they're choosing to do green things, that they're choosing to be more sustainable. Yeah, I mean, the fact that you've got banks coming out and saying that they're not going to invest in certain fossil fuels or in certain businesses that don't have sustainable policies, is just kind of showing that they've recognized the risk of not being green. Just for their own business, the world existing is going to be helpful. So yeah, they should try and shift their practices that way. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where it seems to be at the moment, I guess.
Yeah,
I think my pension advisor asked if I wanted to take out like oil and gas investments out of my pension.
What'd you say? No.
I said, give me that interest, baby. But no, I think actually, is it BlackRock? BlackRock, who I think they have like $1 trillion of investments across the world. It's a US kind of hyper hedge fund. And they have that policy as well where they don't invest in, well, they have a ranking system basically, and it's really highly skewed against, like oil, gas, anything anti-climate change.
Yeah, but then what happening? There are a lot of oil companies, they just buy in the green companies now.
Yeah.
Like the Shell, one of the biggest investments in green energy.
And they buy a battery company or something.
Battery company, solar company.
In the Netherlands, they have something big.
Yeah, they have huge research on it, and I guess they just wait until oil will be cancelled so they can sell electricity.
They should come on our podcast.
Well, I mean, I don't know, it's risky to say, but is that such a bad thing because a lot of the industries are huge. A lot of countries are tied up and have a lot of investment in those industries. And purely from a carbon perspective, you're potentially going to land yourself in a worse place as a country and as a business. Yeah, if you make that move overnight. So if they just decided, yeah, you know what, we're going to get rid of all petrol, all diesel, all oil, I know you're left with no aviation, no plastics, which plastics obviously aren't great, especially like single-use stuff, but then they're extremely useful for a lot of things, to say like medical uses and
which
all
you
that kind
can't
of stuff.
replace it in moment.
Yeah, so it
rapidly.
is, I don't know, you could see it as like these big horrible companies are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but what you
like,
can do,
but
what you
they're-
can do about it, yeah.
they're-
It needs some roadmap, I think, for like 50 years, how to reduce it, get rid of it, yeah.
And the fact that they're doing that, the fact that they're not just sitting there kind of going like, oh, you know what, we've got oil for the rest of our lifetime, so yeah, we'll just like rack up our massive pensions and bonuses and leave, is a good thing. So the fact that might be nice to see them do it a bit faster. It might be nice for them to, maybe be a bit more cooperative in the way that they work. But I don't know, I'm quite a big believer in kind of trying to do what you have control over. So if you don't have control over them, or if you don't really have control over governments, you might get a chance every now and again to vote. You can vote every time that you spend money, which is a good way of doing it. But
That's probably not enough, just government.
No,
It's
but-
people.
Yeah, but exactly. So what we need to do is kind of make our own decisions and our own reductions, and we can kind of force that market to move a lot faster if
Yeah.
we make the right decisions on how we spend our money.
Yeah.
Why do I either think or not think that should really come from government and top down? Like, you need to be sustainable. Why are businesses not judged against metrics? So you say, this is how many, I know you have a calculator on your website where businesses can, estimate how much carbon they're using. But why is there nothing in place to say, if you have 10 employees and 10 company vans and they're driving around all the time, why, as part of your business model, do you not need to offset what you're using? Because if everybody offset, the carbon emissions that business created, and absolutely everybody did it, and then consumers offset as well, then we'd be, carbon negative.
Kind of. So those kind of rules are coming into place. So that the government are putting those rules into bigger businesses, and you're starting to see them kind of like trickle down into smaller, and soon you'll see them into like medium and small, and potentially even micro businesses in the future. So there is a bit of legislation there, and like legislation's good, but in the same way that, I don't know, like tax is legislated, but you still get companies that are giant paying very little tax. So it's like there are ways around it. I think the problem is that part of the global carbon market is a little bit opaque. So some of the big players, or the people who might verify carbon credits, haven't always been as honest as they should be, and that means that if you were to look at their ledger, you might go, "Oh, there's been this much carbon offset," and it hasn't been. And so that's where
hypocrisy.
There was a lot in the US about that. And they studied kind of 10 different, these were mainly tree offsets, where they kind of overestimated their impact by 10 to 20%.
Yeah, what about Dieselgate?
Dieselgate.
Yeah.
What's Dieselgate?
The Volkswagen that they was
Oh, okay.
programmably reducing levels. What?
Yeah, there's all of those things. If you're doing it just by number, you're going to encounter a lot of problems, and people who want to look good. They're employees in a business who want to go, oh, we want to make our business look good, and we want to make our products look good. And I'm sure if given the chance, they would make engines that produced absolutely no CO2 or no nitrates or no carbon monoxide. I'm sure anyone would, but the fact that they don't exist yet, really, means that we are in those kind of situations. And I'm a big believer in kind of almost how you said, like the individuals making a choice is going to be far more powerful. So yes, we need like some big and some targeted and some sweeping legislation from big governments, and we need companies to listen to that and be honest with where they're at. But then individually, how we act to those companies, and how we buy things and how we live our own lives is going to be like a far bigger and far more powerful driving force than those legislations, because there's ways for companies to get around it. And especially when we're looking at high interest rates and businesses maybe struggling a little bit more, and all of this kind of stuff coming into effect, cost of living crisis and things as well, it's going to be very easy for biodiversity and climate to kind of take a little step back as we're kind of just fighting to survive. But whereas if we do focus on being being more green and more sustainable in the way that we shop, and potentially even by being maybe a little bit less judgy of some of the big companies, it could be beneficial, because then they might be more honest. So rather than just boycotting, if they kind of go, look, we're not good, but we really want to be good by 2030, 2040 tops, then we can kind of go, you know what, we'll support you on the journey. But if they're just lying, then that's a bit difficult.
Or if they say, for example, you need to cut everything by 2030, and if companies say we can't, so maybe ask them when you can. So let's work it out, like maybe more time or partly or some stages, something.
Totally.
Huge problem with that, though.
There's always problem.
No, I'm a realist. Everyone says I'm really negative. I'm really realistic. But the huge problem with those targets are that the boards of businesses and the CEOs and the senior leaders of these businesses change all the time. So they can say, we'll change it in 2030, or by 2027, none of them will be there. So it's the next board's problem, and it's the next board's problem, which is the same kind of with governments as well.
Same with people. So you can say, oh, that's not my problem. That's next generation problem.
It's your problem.
No, that's my problem.
Well, I think this is just my opinion. I don't know what you think to this. But heavy top-down legislation would really help to be really clear about it. And I think we're seeing that now with electric cars, where it was California that kind of jumped in the US to say, look, by 2035, I don't know why 35, I went American. I'm going for, they said by 2035, no more gas cars. I'm so into this. In the UK, around 2030, 2035.
Yeah, but do California ready to produce so much electricity, and at what cost? Imagine how many cars in California. Probably a couple millions, more than a couple millions. Everyone have car in California.
It's one of those where kind of want to support, because you're encouraging people to try and start making those good decisions and wanting to be green. It's kind of hard to support if you've seen any of the videos of like cobalt mines in Africa and that kind of stuff, which are just harrowing to see. The kind of like the amount of slavery that goes into a lot of those precious metals that we use to build those batteries and the lithium stuff. So
state's not producing batteries.
They're a little bit,
not much, not enough for all cars.
No, but so there is an issue with it. I'm probably a little bit lean a bit more in the hydrogen way. It kind of fits more in with the model of producing green energy, because then we can overproduce energy, produce hydrogen.
Because it will be huge on the grid. Imagine, because electric car consume a lot of electricity to charge. It's like more than all your house probably.
So I'm looking at the I-20 and I-30N for my next car.
Save environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
And-
agree that it's the choice. Probably it's good that you have a choice.
But then there's also that thing of what we really need to do now is reduce. We're suffering the climate change from emissions from 20 to 50 years ago, and we're producing more than we were then now. So it's
Do you think climate change is real?
yeah.
I've been dying to ask that. Sorry.
I mean, yeah.
I just wanted it for the intro. I was thinking the whole way through. I was thinking, if I say that, it's going in the intro.
How is?
So
But it was changing before.
Yeah, it was
human
changing
impact.
before. But yeah, we're just definitely having an impact. So one of the things that doesn't often get spoken about, and it might just be a small bit, but it's very difficult to measure. But if you think of, if you look around this room, there's that radiator there, right? And that's,
Yeah, you need to start turning that off. It's
that-
summer. Come on, mate.
that radiator is covering like what, 2, maybe 3% of the room. In the UK alone, we're 9% built on. I think worldwide, we're about almost 2% of the land surface is built on. And all of that is a few degrees warmer than it is outside a city or outside a built area. We've got a lot of tarmac and a lot of concrete, all of which hold a lot of heat. We have cars, all which that run at about 90 degrees, really hot. We have all of our laptops running. We have giant furnaces, some of which are like miles squared, all of which are just heated up. You've got factories that cook things, which are...
Me and Ed, we're pretty hot, aren't we? Put it there.
Yeah. But yeah, you got places like this, all of which are producing giant amounts of heat. Like we're burning a lot. And we're like, so yeah, as well as the greenhouse gas effect, we're also warming up our own environments. Like the cities that we live in are going to be a lot warmer. And you see that in places like...
everywhere, New York.
So,
yeah, I mean...
I think UK doing pretty good.
yeah,
all of
this year.
London.
No, I think in generally, environmentally friendly, UK doing pretty good.
Doing okay.
Yeah, because in comparison, something I saw, like in Siberia, in Krasnoyarsk, where I was live, there's a time, because it's minus 30, and the city kind of in around the mountains, a lot of plants, big ones, like aluminium plant and all of that working together.
I thought you meant like
And
bushes. Like there's a lot of plants out there. The trees are made of steel.
factories, a lot of factories working there. And when it's really cold weather at winter, minus 30, the steams and exhaust from it, it's not going out and just covering the
smog.
city.
Yeah.
And this make weather more cold because sun not getting through. So ground getting even colder. So they get more colder winters through it. Plus it's bad for health and everything else.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I guess the other human aspect of it is, there is all of that stuff. There's what we're breathing. The fact that when we open our phone, we have things that tell us the air quality is like, that should be a warning. Like, even if it's got good air quality, the fact that we've got things that tell us what the air quality is that day because of what we're doing to it isn't a good sign. It's like, obviously, you get the pollen count and that kind of stuff. I mean, it sucks if you've got hay fever, but it's pretty nuts that now we've had a fact that now we're globally, we have affected pretty much everything. In fact, I think we're about to start a new epoch as the kind of human dominant epoch. I've forgotten exactly what it's called, but
what's an epoch?
A period of time. But it's kind of they usually last like tens of millions of years. Like just kind of how geologists rate time, but it's the fact that now through rock or through like sediment in the bottom of lakes and stuff, you can now see humans' interactions. So whether that be hydrogen bombs and nuclear bombs going off, you can see those quite clearly in the layers. You can see when there's been times when we've produced less carbon or when we've produced more, and so I imagine it'd probably be quite small, but you'd probably be able to see COVID in there. You'd just be able to see just like a little drop. So yeah, we're about to reach this new epoch. I would actually be in it already, but from this a new age of us having an effect on the planet. And
Have you seen that Earth
that's
2
a bit nuts.
model that came out a week or two ago?
It's
where-
Lego.
No. I got some new Lego the other day, though.
Oh, there's some
Got
wildflower Megos now. Some
Megos.
Megos, wildflower Legos now, which is
Yeah.
super cool.
But anyway, Earth, I think it's called Earth 2, unless I'm going crazy. It's a model, like as in online, kind of digital model of the planet. It shows the impact that humans are having on the carbon cycle. So carbon's modeled as kind of swirling gases, and you can see the kind of seasonal rise and fall of that. But you can also see projections because the carbon levels are kind of like zigzagging up exponentially for summer and winter because most of the trees are in the northern hemisphere. So when we're in summer, CO2 levels go down on average. It's really interesting though. No more spoilers.
I mean, it's a good point to make, is the fact that I tried to get an intern that I had, a geography intern, to be like, when was the last time that the UK was actually carbon neutral? Because it'd be kind of cool, right? If you can kind of go, oh, look, all we need to do is get back to the 1915.
Oh, you sound like my bloody granddad.
Then we can get back to there and then it'd be fine.
Then we used to pull the horse and carriage, all we ate was potato, and you think, bloody hell, granddad.
But you're right, there hasn't, it's annoyingly not as clear cut as that. So it's not really a metric that you can find. But an interesting one is the fact that we can't offset ourselves out of it. We do need to reduce. So we'd need to, even if we used all of the available land in the UK to plant trees and meadow and seagrass in the sea, we'd need 10 of those of all of the available land, or 2.5 UKs we'd need to offset what we produce in this country. And that's like very similar to a lot of other nations. Obviously, we're quite a densely packed place. So like some places might have a bit more chance of being able to do that on their land, but globally, and to feed everyone at the same time, we can't kind of carry on as we are. We do need to be a lot more efficient. And the good news is, speaking in Lincoln, is they set themselves the goal of becoming neutral by 2030, I think it was. And pretty much halfway there. Like they've managed to get about halfway there in just a few years. And that's just because the first few steps you make are the easiest and will likely do the biggest amount. So if that's you're in your home, it's changing your light bulbs, it's maybe when you upgrade your dishwasher or your washing machine, just getting an efficient one and
use Calgon.
Save money. Yeah. Always. They live longer with Calgon.
Yeah, I think it's really important that government and people work together on it. So I have a story, weird one, but
Yeah, go for
it's
it.
connected to it. I don't remember what year it was, but we just started to have the recycling in Ukraine. So, and I get
2019.
And I get so excited about it because I was thinking, oh, finally we can separate garbage. And yeah, sound weird for you guys, but yeah, it was something really new.
Nice.
And I was trying really hard to separate the glass and plastic and was putting it in the bin till one day I saw that one truck came there and take all the bins and just drive away.
That's very sad.
And you were moaning on the Katrina episode about UK. So we're coming towards the end of the podcast. So there are a couple of questions that I want to ask you. Quick fire questions.
Go for it.
We kind of covered this already, but what do you think of electric cars?
Potentially kind of cool. Technology needs to get better. I guess you kind of need to invest in them to get better. But I think ultimately hydrogen's probably going to win.
Who would win in a fight out of a bee and a wasp? And why?
It depends on the bee, depends on the wasp. Ideally, You wouldn't want them to fight. However, I think they'd make quite a good fighting duo against maybe an invasive species like an Asian hornet. They could fight together to take out a giant hornet. I reckon that would be a much better fight to watch.
Yeah, I saw the bees can kill big hornets. So hornets get into the bees.
Oh yeah, and they
yeah,
destroy
they
beehives and
just
stuff.
all
So
get together and just
Oh yeah, don't they?
they wing the wings and
Yeah, to bring the
Yeah.
temperature up.
yeah, and they cook them alive. But ideally, you
Do we
kind
have
of
those big bees in the UK? Like,
Well,
not bees, but they're
giant
like hornets.
There's a few now. So yeah, you kind of if you see one, report it, and ideally try and kill it because it's just not the kind of
Yeah,
thing that we want
probably-
around here.
Final question, more serious one. Give me a few ways. You've got to go out with a bang now, I'll be honest. The
Okay.
expectation is mounting. I'm nervous for you. Give me a few ways that businesses can quite quickly reduce their environmental impact.
Speak to somebody who's who does that. There's plenty of people who do that as a job. There's loads of online courses that you can do, which would be a lot more applicable to your business. So yeah, anything from having solar panels to driving a little bit less, using things like green servers on your website that you might not think about, but that has an effect. That's like many hundreds of kilograms every year that you're saving. Choosing where you buy things from. So still not perfect, but if you've got an Amazon business account, just go for the climate friendly one. It's going to be a little bit better than going for the non-climate friendly version. So purely making those kind of decisions. So reviewing your packaging. If you've got a smart meter installed, just kind of see what you have like vampire devices that might just be on and just sucking out electricity in the background. So yeah, there's loads of different things that you can do. I mean, you could even maybe change the way you eat. Educating your clients is a massive one. So just saying, maybe here are a few ideas of what they can do. We do have a list of 100 things you can do on our website, actually.
Okay.
That should be out by the time this.
Because I think a lot of things are just really expensive, like solar panel or electric cars. It's
A great case study for that was things like LED or energy saving light bulbs or rechargeable batteries, both of which used to be massively expensive compared to their like less eco counterparts. But now that like the price and especially over their lifetimes totally changed. So now an LED light will last longer and use less electricity, and it will save you money in months even, rather than having like a big 100-watt bulb in.
And they're normally brighter.
Yeah, so it's things like that, which I mean, for companies that can afford to, if they're investing in things like solar panels, it's like eventually in just a couple of years, that's going to help bring down the price for everyone else. So I guess, yeah, big companies.
but they have to pay the price.
Yeah, they have to pay the price, but I mean, they can just pay less tax at the end of the year to cover the price, and long term, it's going to save them money. And I think maybe that's a way of, if you're going to be in your business for a really, really long term, maybe that's kind of the way that you should be, thinking. Because I mean, you've still got the solar panels at the end, and they can be good for like 15, 20 to 25 years maybe. So it's like you can always sell it on if things don't work out.
Yeah, I think they getting more efficient every year and more price probably not really changing, but they getting more efficient.
Yeah, I mean,
and look
price,
nicer.
The price is changing because I mean you can even get those battery packs now, right? Where you have a battery pack and you can just like plug normal plugs into it, and USB-Cs, and like they're pretty cool. Just get a charger for that. Yeah. So for anyone who's got like a small office in a shed or something like that, or it's like probably power your laptop and a nice light and a small kettle off that, you'd be fine.
How many solar panels you need to mine Bitcoin?
I mean, with the Lightning Network now, not that many. It's like there's like crypto as a thing's becoming a lot greener as well. In fact, some are now more efficient than the traditional banking system, just because of the amount of security the banking system has to go through. and how long they store their records for, the way some crypto mine and send is now, arguably greener than some of the traditional
Yeah, I
banks.
think traditional banks just have a lot of waste, and because they doing their business old-fashioned way, and it's affecting, and it will take many years
Oh,
for them.
they sent me a checkbook
transfer.
the other day, which is
That
I
was
was just
so-
like I put it in my drawer full of all of the other checkbooks that I've had over the years.
I wouldn't know how to fill in a check.
I heard recently that the paper one documents and everything is more eco-friendly than have it digitally. Is it true?
Potentially. So things like printing out an A4 sheet of paper is more eco-friendly than emailing that same attachment to someone. So there's
Because
a
of
bit of a
recycling.
misconception that
Yeah, I think it's because probably case for UK, but not worldwide, because UK recycling all
maybe,
paper.
but then there's the whole thing of, so a lot of what we do at My Square Metre is like your digital footprint. So plant a wildflower every time you send an email.
Yeah.
An email's about 4 grams, or a tapping of your card whenever you buy something is about 3.74 grams of carbon, and a wildflower over 30 years does 6 grams. So obviously that still takes quite a long time for that one wildflower to do its job, but it's the statistics on that is basically taking the whole UK, not the whole UK, the whole of a field, and kind of boiling it down to the space one might take up. So it's that's kind of how we work it out, is we say there's per square meter, that's, roughly how much space one would take, and that's the way we do our maths. But there's a lot of digital things that we don't realize. Streaming on Spotify, just downloading your favorite playlist, save a load of carbon. You're not downloading it every single time you listen to it. And that's just a change that you can just make, and that's a few kilograms every year. It's just a few things like that, and a few changes that you can kind of starting to see platforms do in general anyway. Their compression algorithms are amazing now, but just that less data that we move around the place, the better, really. But just watch this in super low quality, and we're going to say that right at the end.
Everyone says this podcast is low quality anyway, even though it's in 4K. So if people want to find out more about My Square Metre and what you do and how they can get involved, where should they start?
I guess the website is a really good place to start. So we've got plenty of blogs and ideas on how you might be able to reduce your impact, or how you might be able to use us. So some people plant the equivalent size of their office in wildflower meadow. So it's kind of like, this is all space that maybe Edgar couldn't. There's no hedgehogs in Edgar's office, but in the meadow that we plant on the equivalent size, maybe there will be a hedgehog, or
There's a couple of cockroaches.
One is sit next to me.
Or you can plant some wildflowers every time that you send emails, or pay for anything. Or we've got a calculator, we can work out how much time you spend on LinkedIn, or TikTok, or Spotify, and all of these kind of things. So the website's great, or just reach out to me on LinkedIn. We can have a chat. That'd be great.
And that's the end. We've had, I think it's been quite a good podcast. I've enjoyed it. I feel like I've actually learned quite a lot.
It was very eco-friendly.
I was sorry if it wasn't very fun. I just realized how boring I probably sound through the whole thing.
Oh, I learned a lot. I learned what epoch is. It's something.
It's a thing.
It's a period of time. But no, I think it's been good. Obviously, sustainability is something that people are talking about more and more now. But I also think that the barrier to entry with companies like Ed's is getting lower and lower. So if, for instance, you run a service-based business, it can be worth looking at doing things like, every time you get a client in and you send them an invoice, then add on a couple of pounds, send that money to Ed, and let Ed minimize the impact of your service.
I mean, we'll send you lots of really nice pictures of the meadow, and kind of like some nice cool graphics and stuff you can use on your socials and stuff as well.
It's kind of OnlyFans for plants.
OnlyFans for plants.
Sending money and getting pictures of plants.
You know what? It's actually not a bad idea. Shall I set up a My Square Metre OnlyFans?
OnlyFans.
Just
You're
pictures
welcome.
of plants.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
So after that insightful parting thought.
Yeah, we want to ask you to subscribe to our channel, put the like if you want to be world more green, more eco-friendly. Leave a comment how you think you can be, or any business can be more green and eco-friendly. We see your thoughts, and we see you in the next podcast next week. Bye.